All right, before I get into this video, which is going to be on my plan, initial plan, my research and resources that I've collected for U.S. history and literature for 8th grade, 9th grade, maybe a little into 10th grade, I want to let you know that Jill from the Patterson Homeschool Academy also has a video out where she's talking about high school planning and a lot of history and literature topics. So if this is something that is interesting to you, make sure you head over and check out her video. I will try to link it down below. But for now, let me get into what I have to share with you today. Hey everyone, in today's video, it's gonna be a long one. I wanna talk about my planning and kind of thought process for how I'm looking at the rest of middle school and high school for my current 7th grader in terms of U.S. history and literature. So I think it's important to be thinking about these things before you get there. And this is something, history especially, that has kind of just been on my mind for a while now. And I've been slowly collecting resources that I think I might want to use and really trying to hone in on how it is I want to do history and just what that might look like. And I need to do that so that I know before we get there, before we get to high school, that if there's anything that needs to happen learning-wise before then, that we're able to schedule that in. So I think it's important to kind of plan ahead, or at least even just some basic outlines of where you think you want to go. So today I'm going to share kind of my thoughts on that and a bunch of the resources that I am looking at. And I'm specifically in this video going to focus on U.S. history and literature because that's all my brain can handle right now. So yeah, let me just get started. I will say that it is likely this will be tweaked and changed as we move forward. This just happens to be where I am right now. So where did I start? I started with looking at my state's social studies standards for high school. Now, am I going to teach specifically to these standards? Probably not, but it's a good place to start to look at, what's being taught when in schools in my state. So again, I'm just going to focus on U.S. history right now because that's the most important to me and that's where we're going to start. But, our standards cover American history, American government, modern world history, economics and financial literacy. I'll touch on this a little bit. Contemporary world issues and world geography. So when I looked at American history for high school, they start in 1877 and then move towards the present. So that was good for me to know because, again, do I have to do it that way? No. But that helped me make some decisions in what I was looking at. So this year in 7th grade, we are doing Curiosity Chronicles Modern History, Volume 1. And I believe there's supposed to be 3 volumes, but I don't know when the other 2 volumes are going to come out. So I've kind of taken those off the table for now. I will reassess if those come out, in the future. But we are covering both some U.S. history and some world history. But I really want to focus specifically on U.S. history next year for 8th grade and then 9th grade as well. And then we'll kind of see where it goes after that. All right, so I looked at these. I have an idea of where I want to go. How am I going to get there? I've looked at a lot of history textbooks. In general, they kind of fall under that whitewashed history that I don't want for my kids. They do kind of give you a roadmap. The more I've thought about it, I kind of would like to have that as a roadmap, have kind of this foundation of this is what most people's U.S. history education consists of. and then we can build from there. But having that as kind of this baseline of knowledge that this is what everyone, for the most part, gets. And then how can we take that and add in different perspectives and do some critical thinking and some analyzing to see what we think about that baseline of U.S. history education, if that makes any sense. So I have done a video in the past on core knowledge. Core knowledge is created for the public schools. So is it maybe less diverse, maybe more whitewashed than, say, Oh Freedom or something like that? Obviously, yes. But I don't think it's horrible. And there are things I really actually like about this. And I think the fact that I'm planning to really add a lot in, I think that this will be a good jumping off point for us. Now, as I said, I really like to have a roadmap. I like to have something to guide me. And then if I want to go off in different directions or add more things in, I can do that. So I think that this will actually be a really good kind of roadmap place for us to start. Now, this is intended for 7th grade. I'm planning to use it for 8th grade and 9th grade. But I think that with what I plan to add in, it will be perfectly fine. I think you have to take some of these grade level recommendations with a grain of salt. Now, do I think that you should be using like a 2nd grade history curriculum for a 9th grader? No. But I think that this is within the realm of we can make this work. Now, I won't go into too much detail about this because I have done another video on it and I will link that down below. But some of the things that I like about this is, one, just visually, it's not overwhelming, right? It's accessible, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But I do like that they include vocabulary, some writing extensions. Very frequently they have these find out the facts where they encourage you to do some research to find out a little bit more, and some of these like more deeper thinking or critical thinking, think twice questions. I really like that, and those are going to be a lot of where we choose to kind of jump off, bring in some other perspectives, do some more research and critical analysis. Now, the vocabulary that they have, I have found, my 7th grader right now probably knows most of this vocabulary. So I would say that may be a little bit weak, but it is, I would say, important to being able to understand this text. So I'm sure that's why they include it. I also have the teacher's manual for it as well. And I think one of the reasons that people struggle with core knowledge is that they don't use the teacher manual. And I have been guilty of that in the past. But over the years, I've kind of worked with it in other core knowledge curriculums. And I think that there's a lot of really good, helpful information in here. You have to give yourself time to look through this and see how you're going to apply it. So as of right now, I feel like this is going to be our spine that we will then branch off from. I also have the civics and economics, which I would like to do next year as well in 8th grade. Again, this is written for 7th grade. I think it will be just fine. We've done quite a bit of like basic U.S. government things, especially with our election study this year, but I think that this will be good. And then it also gets into, there's also, hold on, let me take this clip off and I can show you what's in here. But this is free from Core Knowledge. I just downloaded this and printed it for free. These I actually paid for and ordered the bound books. You can do it either way. But so we have civics in U.S. history and economics in U.S. history. And so the civics covers what is government, origins of the American government, the U.S. Constitution, rights and responsibilities, structure of the U.S. government, and the federal system. And it's set up identical to how the history one is. And then they split up civics and economics. So then here we get into what is an economy, why do people make certain economic choices, exchange, the marketplace, and then economics through U.S. history. So This is something that I plan to incorporate into 8th grade as well. So I am looking really at volume 1 for 8th grade and then volume 2 for 9th grade. I also bought this textbook off of eBay for, I don't know, a couple bucks. I grabbed this one because around the time that I was first looking at core knowledge history, I also purchased O Freedom, and I thought I would try to combine the two. Now this is I think the middle version of O Freedom. They have a younger like picture book one for lower elementary, and then they have a high school one. This is kind of the one in the middle of those two. I may eventually purchase the high school version to see, but at any rate, this is something that I thought I could incorporate pull pieces and parts from as well. But in this book, somewhere in this curriculum, she recommended if you felt you needed a history textbook, this was the one that she recommended. I don't know where it is right now, but this is where I got that recommendation. Now, this is specifically for high school, and you can tell that it's got much more in it than the core knowledge. But there's a lot. There's a lot on the page. And so I'm not sure if or how we will use this, but I do think it's a good resource. Even though it's that probably whitewashed U.S. history textbook, I still think there can be good things in here. I do like throughout, they have these little, like another perspective sections. I like, they have like this section on historic Supreme Court cases and related cases, the legal reasoning, why it mattered, the historical impact, how to think critically. So this really could be a jumping off point. So none of these resources do I plan to use alone. And I think that that's the important part when you're teaching U.S. history. There is going to be no perfect U.S. history curriculum out there. You have to really pull it together from multiple resources. That's the only way to do it, in my opinion, to do it well. They have these throughout, these analyzing political cartoons, which I like. And then they also have many of these point and counterpoint, where they take an issue and you try to look at both sides of it. So I do think that there are some good things in this book. It is yet to be seen exactly how we will use this, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. I really would like to layer in as many different perspectives and different ways to look at things as I can. So we will be spending a lot of time on kind of analyzing critical literacy, looking at who wrote things, what their sources are. I found this and I really like it. Who's the author? Why did the author write this piece? Who is the intended audience? Whose voice is represented? Whose voices are missing? What issues of power are represented in the piece? How are women portrayed? What experiences of the author may be guiding his or her writing? What did the author hope to communicate? How is your interpretation influenced by your knowledge of the period in which it was written? I got this from PBS on critically analyzing media. And then I really want to go into primary source documents. And this was a really good article from, I think it was a blog post actually. But where is it from? Where is it from? I think it's like education. I will find it and I will link it. But you only get a certain number of free articles and then you have to be a subscriber, which I wish I'd realized before I'd willy-nilly started clicking on articles. But this is 8 ways to teach with primary sources. And there's some really good ideas in here that I would like to implement. So that was a good article, but that's kind of one of the angles that I want to kind of attack this from. I think the other thing that's really important as I'm planning this and kind of looking toward the future is a lot of the research and reading that I'm going to need to do ahead of time. So I thought I would share some of those resources that I have right now. And some of these I will end up having my student read parts of probably as well. So this is something I picked up at Half Price Books. It's called Teaching Hard History, a Framework for Teaching American Slavery. It's just a thin little book here, and you may be able to get this on their website too. It's done by Teaching Tolerance. But I like, again, that this is kind of a roadmap for things that I want to make sure that I am aware of and that we cover in some way. So I have that. This we're going to use quite a bit next year in 8th grade, and then as we get further in history, we'll use some of the other chapters as well. But this is Reading Like a Historian, Teaching Literacy in Middle and High School History Classrooms. And what drew me to this is another one that I happened to see at Half Price Books, was this section on Lincoln. Because I have a kid who really likes Lincoln, I was kind of drawn into this when it really asks you to look at racism and Lincoln. And this focuses specifically on primary source documents and trying to look at them in context and forming your opinion based on what you read in the historical documents, and kind of looking at historically, looking at the time that things were said and written and all of that. So I really like this book, and so we will definitely be doing that one. There's also, I have earmarked for 8th grade specifically, Pocahontas and John Smith, and this one is The Battle at Lexington. So I think this is a really good resource, and this is one we plan to use. This author, I also have several books by that I borrowed from the library that I'll share here in a minute. This is a resource from Freedom that I think this is one that, again, I will be reading to kind of do my research a bit ahead of time. There are some activities in here that I think we could pull out and use. So again, this is going to be a lot of pulling in multiple resources, which can seem overwhelming, but I'm going to try my best because I think it's important in U.S. history. This is a book I've also mentioned before. This is something I think in high school that we are going to use at some point, where I will have my my child actually read this, and we will do a project probably based around it. This is a really good book, I think, for anyone to read. And then we have the standard, I feel like these are like the ones you see everywhere, right? An Indigenous Peoples' History of the United States, Howard Zinn's A Young People's History of the United States, A Different Mirror. So these are ones that I will be reading. I've already read parts of most of them. And then likely I will have my daughter read bits and pieces of these as well. I also have the, I guess the adult version of A People's History of the United States. I don't know. I guess that's the other thing that I hope to address with our history is when we look at writings like this, to be able to critically look at them and say, all right, where are they getting this opinion specifically? What did they look at? Where is this information coming from that formed their opinion? Because there are definite opinions in this book that are going to differ from things you read other places. So this one's been harder for me to get through than this one. So we'll see. But this one was on clearance, so I had to buy it. All right, some other books that I'm reading, again, for my own education. This is Teaching What Really Happened. This is by James Lowen. He is the author of Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. This has been out for a long time, but it has been updated within the last few years, I believe. Let's see, I think there was a date in here. Well, this is the second edition, so it's at least been updated once anyway. 2018 is when this one was updated. So this is a really, really fascinating book, in my opinion. And they make a young adult version. And then they also just recently came out with a graphic novel version, which I really love the graphic novel version. So I will be having my child read a version of this. I'm not sure which one, probably this one. But I'm reading this one again for my own kind of research and education ahead of time. And I really like it. But he also wrote this one called Teaching What Really Happened: How to Avoid the Tyranny of Textbooks and Get Students Excited About Doing History. So I'm not very far into this one yet, but I'm enjoying it so far. And then I also have some books by Sam Weinberg, who I mentioned in that other book. This is called Historical Thinking and Other Unnatural Acts: Charting the Future of Teaching the Past. And Why Learn History When It's Already on Your Phone. So I think those are good ones. And then this one I just got called Why Won't You Just Tell Us the Answer? Teaching Historical Thinking in Grades 7 through 12. The contents of this book: Reinventing My Classroom, Making Historical Thinking a Reality, Introducing Historical Thinking with Nat Turner's Rebellion of 1831, Text, Subtext, and Context, Using the Rail Strike of 1877 to Teach Chronological Thinking and Causality, Using the Bonus March of 1932 to Teach Multiple Perspectives. You can read the rest there, but I think this one's going to be really useful as well. All right. Where to go from there? I would also like to include, I want to tie in our literature in 8th grade and in high school into our history. I'm pretty confident on that right now, that at least for next year, I don't want to go with a literature curriculum. This year we're using Lightning Literature, and we like it, but I really want to have the time to do more with our literature and our history together and really kind of deep dive into some of these things. So I'm going to get to what I have for literature here in a minute. But another thing, a few other resources that I have or that I plan to use, and one is these problem-based learning units from Royal Fireworks Press. We just finished one called The Great Debates, and I did a review on that, which I will link. But there are several others, and this one in particular, this one won't be until 9th grade, but this one is A Final Appeal, The First Amendment, and To Kill a Mockingbird. So when we get to that point in history, I would like to read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then I would also like to do this problem-based learning from Royal Fireworks Press. This is just a free sample of it that they have on their website. I have not purchased it yet, but this kind of gives you the problem narrative that you would be working with. And then others as they fit in with history that they have. We have All Work and No Play, Child Labor in the Progressive Era, Excluded, Chinese Immigration to the United States, Hull House, Living Democracy in the Progressive Era, and Fit to Print, A Problem with Yellow Journalism and the Road to War with Spain. And then we will probably do The Great Debates again when she's a little bit older. But I think that these are a really great way to take history and critical thinking and modern kind of application to things and really have it add a lot to your study of history. So that's a plan. Also, I have this is just the free sample that you can download because I haven't purchased it yet, but I really love the look of this Oak Meadow Civics course. Now, this is 8th grade. I think the plan for us right now is to put this in 9th grade. Again, I don't think it makes that big of a deal. What I like a lot about this is that they're looking at actual landmark court cases, comparing them, evaluating them. But here's some of what's covered in here. This is all in their free sample that you can get on their website. But you can see what's covered in the curriculum. This is really expensive, which is why I haven't bought it yet. I'm just watching to maybe get it used, but let's see here. Here's, I think, the first one where you're looking at some landmark court cases, and they've got like 4 different court cases that you're going to learn more about, or you're going to pick one of them, I think, to kind of dig deeper into. And so that was just really appealing to me about this curriculum in particular. I think this will really kind of enhance our studies a lot, and I'm excited to eventually purchase it. This, I am so excited for whenever it is we are going to use this. I purchased this from Pandia Press. It is called History Compass, a guide to historical thinking, research, and writing. And this will be used in high school at some point. And I'm actually thinking of possibly doing this after we've finished all of our years of U.S. history. Not like at the same time we're studying U.S. history, but that's still, you know, something to be decided. So this one is taught to the student, and then there's just this very little teeny tiny teacher guidance section for you. They give you some information on kind of writing up a course description, and like credits and things like that, which I think is helpful. So the first unit of this focuses on historical thinking, and you can expect them to gain an understanding of the ways that historians explore the past in order to write an accurate narrative of history. The second unit expands on their knowledge of historical research, including the different kinds of sources they could use, where and how to find sources, how to use sources in their assignments, and documentation of sources. And then the third unit pulls the first 2 units together and applies the knowledge and skills to historical writing. So they'll learn to practice different forms of writing, etc. And it says by the end, they should have a solid understanding of the knowledge and skills required for historical thinking, research, and writing, and be able to apply to their coursework. So it says, so often history is taught by facts and dates with no real connection to the learner's own experiences and interests, nor given practical, tangible ways to apply what they have learned. So this aims to change that. So my initial thought was to put this in after we've done a lot of our U.S. history study. And now I'm not sure if we should somehow maybe start with this. I'm not sure. So this is still up in the air when we're going to use it, but we will definitely be using it. I think it looks excellent. All right, so literature and reading. In general, I would like to bring in other nonfiction reading so that we have additional information, additional perspectives, another way of looking at a certain topic. And so I have just pulled some that I happen to have on hand that I'm looking specifically at 8th grade for. So we have a History Smashers. I really like these books. Is this too young for 8th grade? I don't know. I think it would be okay. I have Never Caught, The Story of Ona Judge. This is the Young Readers edition. I have Two Miserable Presidents, The Amazing, Terrible, and Totally True Story of the Civil War. I like the books by Steve Sheinkin a lot. We've read several others by him. And then I have, in addition to all of the books I showed you for my kind of research that I may use for my child to read as well, I have 3 of the 4, I think there's 4 books, versions of the stamped books. Now this one we were going to read this year, and I'll be honest, I don't love this one. I read through different parts of it, and I feel like I don't want to read this version until I make sure my kids are able to really ask critical thinking questions when they're reading. What I don't love about this one is they don't really, it's not just that they don't cite their sources in this version of it, but I don't know. I feel like they just kind of come at you with their interpretation of history. And while I think it's good and I want to read their interpretation of history, I want more ability for us to look at it critically. So I don't know if we'll read the young kids version, but I did get I believe this is the young adult version, like the teen version. And I do like that this one does give some more information on where their information came from. I also have looked at the adult version from the library, and I'll be honest, that thing's a beast, and I just don't think that I'll read it. However, I will probably read this one, and I also really like the graphic novel version, and this may end up being the route that we go. We'll see, but we'll definitely be reading one of these as well. All right, so that's kind of some nonfiction reading. Now, as we get into 8th grade and into high school, I want to tie our literature study, our novel studies, all of that, the bulk of it, I would like to come from our history, somehow be related to our history. I also really want to put a focus on banned books. Again, really developing our critical thinking skills, and I think reading banned books is a great way to do that. I found this curriculum from Homeschool Help by Shauna Wingert. Actually, I think it's called Different by Design Learning. But this is a high school literature study for the curious and unafraid. Now, I will tell you, there's not like a ton to this, but I just like that it kind of lays it out for me. She explains kind of why she wrote this curriculum and why she has her students study banned books. And then this particular curriculum, 7, 8, 9. It looks like there's 9 books that it takes you through. Again, I liked it because it has To Kill a Mockingbird, and that's one I want to read in 9th grade. But they do tell you this is not a typical literature study. There's not comprehension questions or vocabulary lists or anything like that. They want you to read the book. And then for each, here's like the study guide. Read the book. Check out some additional resources on your own, or they include some here. And then critically think about the nature of the book and its banned book status. And then for each book, they have this kind of banned book analysis question sheet, and then these additional resources. The ones I looked at, there were like crash course videos, and there's a Spark Notes summary, and then some other videos. So I would like to, when we can, pull in banned books, whether they're on this list or other lists, and I would like to tie them into history where we can. Again, focusing on really building our critical thinking skills and ability to kind of analyze things. So that's one thing that we're going to do kind of 8th grade and 9th through 12th grade. Also, this is something that I shared in a recent haul that I purchased. I wanted to do kind of a focused Abraham Lincoln study, which is going to be next year. I wanted to do it this year, but we just can't fit it in. So this is going to go into next year. It'll tie in great to our history. And this takes the Gettysburg Address, and you really break it down and look at the language used, and I guess you look at it more from like a writing and grammar aspect, and kind of more like the poetic form of it. And so I think this is great. And if we like this, they make these for other kind of famous speeches and things like that. So I might pull in some additional of these as well. All right, and then now for the literature. This is still growing. I'm still figuring this part out. These are kind of my initial thoughts for 8th grade, and I'm still building 9th grade, and then however long we're on U.S. history. But one I definitely want to do next year is The Red Badge of Courage. This also was a banned book. I have not read this, but this is Civil War time period. So what I plan to do for these is we will insert them when we are at this time period in history, and then I will find a novel study or something, or write my own to go along with it as well, so that we are attacking it not just from the historical perspective, but from a novel study, close reading approach as well. So we have Red Badge of Courage. We have this Tim Tingle book, How I Became a Ghost. This is during the Trail of Tears. And I think there's a second one. I know there's at least a second. I'm not sure if there's a third. But this is what I'm looking at for next year for 8th grade. This was in my pile, but I'm not sure if it's too young for 8th grade. I believe there's 3 books in this series. So if you've read the series, let me know if you think from kind of a novel study point of view, if this could be used for 8th grade, or if you think it's too easy. And then the other one ones that I would like to do is the Lori Halsey Anderson series. This is her Seeds of America series, and it has Chains, Forge, and Ashes. And I believe these are Revolutionary War. So I would like to include these as well, and do a literature study on these. So that's kind of what I have for literature, but again, I would like to have a focus on banned books, and I would, when possible, like to tie them into our history. Will everything we read be tied into our history? Probably not, but I would like the majority of it to be, at least for 8th grade, 9th grade, and then we'll see after that. So this is a whole lot. If you watched this long, thank you. I hope it was useful to you. If you have literature suggestions for me, specifically if they would be appropriate for 8th, 9th grade, they have a history tie-in and they were a banned book, let me know. Or just kind of a must-read, you think, kind of classic, should be read and dissected by an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader, or whatever the age is, let me know. I would love to know that. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any resources that you think I should take a look at, I would love to know that as well. And this is just my beginning, right? This is everything that I've collected over the last, honestly, it's probably been the last year or so. And this is me trying to look at it a little more critically now and really start to see how I'm going to piece things together. Likely this will evolve and change a little bit, and I will get a little bit more in detail and in depth. I mean, there's going to be a whole lot more planning and research that has to happen before I'm ready to implement any of this, but I thought that it might be helpful to you to kind of share where I am in the process and what I'm looking at right now. And then again, once I kind of get a handle on this, I will have to go back and look at the rest of history for high school. This is really just going to get us through the first year or two. It'll get us through 8th grade, 9th grade, possibly 10th grade. So we'll see. So at any rate, thank you for sticking around. If you did, if you have any questions or suggestions for me, let me know down in the comments.